With widening light, it's just 3 simple and fast steps. First, the accelerator rinse.
It's on there. Okay. Give your full name and tell me how old you are now.
Evan Lucille Babb. I used to be a Shira. Tom Shira was my daddy. Minnie Caroline Rayleigh was my mother.
Okay. Can you tell me when you was born and where?
I was born in Geneva County in 1922, June 27th.
Okay. You told us who your parents were. Could you tell us what kind of jobs they had? What was their career?
They didn't have no career, just make a living as farmers.
Okay. How many brothers and sisters did you have, and can you name them all?
Well, I had 3 half-sisters. And Maureen, Ruthie, and Pearlie. And got one Isabel, she's dead. There's 4 of them, make 4. And I was the oldest after Mama married my daddy. And there was me and Simon, my brother, and Harriet. And there was one by the name of Joshua, he was older than me. He's dead. He died at 6 months.
What did he die of?
Pneumonia. Isabel died of pneumonia too, so they was a Bowens family. That's my half-sisters.
Okay, did you attend school?
5th grade, I quit in 5th grade.
Okay. Do you remember what kind of grades you made?
Fair, not A's.
Okay, could you tell me a little bit about what life was like for you? I mean, did you, after going to school, come home and work or?
Yeah, we'd come home, go to the cotton patch, pick cotton, or go to the peanut patch, shake peanuts, go to the field and hoe. Our days off from school was hoeing or either gathering cotton or peanuts. And old velvet beans, that's something that stings you when you pick them.
So you had to wear gloves?
Yeah, pull corn. But my mama in 1930, around 1933, 34, why then I quit school and went with her to the sewing factory, government sewing factory in Hartford. We'd make beds, pillars, quilts. Ended up, that's where most of my clothes come from the scraps that was left. We made our clothes out of that. We could take them home with us. I think President Roosevelt was one that opened up that sewing factory for the people that couldn't help. Didn't have no jobs.
So Roosevelt was president when you was little.
Yeah.
Can you remember some of the things that happened during that time period?
Well, there's a lot of things
Anything dramatic, really, that has stuck in your head all these years?
Yeah, I remember whenever I was, which Maureen, my oldest half-sister, said I was about 2 years old, me climbing up on the fence and watched the parade walking by the house. They had elephants and camels and all kind of animals. They had lions, bears. And I didn't know how old it was, but that stuck in my mind. I can remember that. Pretty good. And my sister says I wasn't but 2 years old.
So must have been very important.
Pretty good it was, because it was something new out there in the country. I remember my daddy used to go out in the woods to beat and cut bee trees, and we'd rob the trees and get the honey and go back that night then and take them home. That's where we got our sweets. We used to eat possum, coon, rabbits, Gophers.
Did all the meat taste the same?
It all tasted good. It was good because we was poor folks. That's about the only way we'd get anything to eat. She'd wash for people, iron for them, scrub for them, make a living.
Your mother would?
Yeah, she didn't have no trade. I went to school many a time with a piece of cornbread for my lunch. We got a hold of an egg, well then, if we got a piece of candy, I'd take the egg to school with me and walk down to the store and trade that egg for a piece of candy. I remember another instance though that when Simon and me, we took a chicken over to cross the creek to the store, we were supposed to get a sack of flour. We stopped at the creek down there. One of us would hold the chicken's mouth open and poke that chicken full of rocks. The old man told Mama later that chicken had the most rocks in its craw he'd ever seen.
Why'd y'all do that? I mean, the more it weighed, the more you got for it, or
Just kids, just kids.
just kids playing around?
Yeah, just playing around.
I was going to have all kind of trouble with you when you come in my class. But as it turned out, you one of the best pupils I got. Her name was Miss Anderson. And I told her, yeah, Miss Anderson, I says, you do your job, I do mine. But my home was busted up after that. I was living in a house by myself over there, and a bunch of Indians over close by wanted the house, and so they got a probation officer after me. Because I was living there, I was on my own. I was working at Peter Santo's bakery shop. My brother William was in the CC camp sending me his check, allotment check. Of course, he come home and get most of it. But I was mostly eating from the bakery shop and making my way that way. But the Indians wanted the house because it was a condemned house that I was living in. The people that owned it, God knows where they was at. There's 4 houses, and nobody knowed who they belonged to. And anybody moved in and out as they wanted to, and I had one of them. But the Indians wanted it, a bunch of them, and so they got the probation officer after me. That's the only way they could get me out, because I couldn't work and make my way through life and go to school. So I was told that they had called the probation officer.
What'd you do about it?
Well, he come in. I seen him when he parked in front of the house, and he run to the back. When he run to the back, I went out at the front and crossed the woods. And after that, I slept beside the road with the various families for what I could eat and wear. And I've been on my own ever since. I knew your grandma there, because Doc married her half-sister. So I knew her when she was a little fella. And I was in and out, round about. And finally she got, being 13-year-old, I figured she was old enough to be my wife. And so we got married. And she was having it about as rough as I was. But we've made it through this over 53 years together.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. But we married not like most of them this day and time. They married for sex. And that's one of the worst things that any man or girl can do. You marry, that's a sacred thing. And you want to marry somebody when you get married that you know cares enough for you, and not sex, but for you, enough to love and respect you till you can be with him if the world stands another 50 years. Oh, we've had it rough through life. There's no doubt about it. I hurt and I suffered through my coming up, working for mothers from sun up to sundown for what I could eat and wear. Me and your grandma, we've had it so rough at times. We was eating squashes without any soup. Without any salt or grease to cook them. Just boil them in water. Anything to survive until we could do better. But we always figured we had each other, and that's what counts. And when you get married, you want a mate that thinks that much of you. As long as he's got you, we're together. That's the main thing that counts. Because if it ain't, it'd be like James, Pumpkin, Bobby Joe, various ones I could name, hundreds and thousands of them. As you know, I've been here a long time. As I said, on the 14th, I'll be here 73 years now. And I've got up and went to my work, and me hurting through my stomach, chest so bad till I couldn't hold my steering wheel straight. I just had to do the best I could. And your grandma trying to get me to go to the doctor. I said, if I don't get to feeling better, I'll go back to work. Because I meant that my kids wasn't going to suffer the way I suffered coming up through life. And I don't think they have. Now, they didn't have the best to eat at times, but they had something to eat. They could fill up. I've seen that Jesse that run of the bunch pile up a pile of grits, looked like enough to feed a horse. He eat every one of them. I reckon your mama and Evelyn eat less than any one of the kids coming up.
Most girls don't eat very much.
You know, they don't eat like the boys did, no way. But it was there. They wanted it. I have had to take castor oil, different things that my old man gave me. If I didn't eat, I took medicine. Well, I said I wouldn't make my kids do that, because when I wouldn't eat, he'd give me medicine. You can't eat, you're sick. Give me a dose of castor oil or Epsom salts. That was what he believed in. But if he left me alone, I got hungry enough, I'd go eat. But he wouldn't do it. Yeah. And my daddy is one that you didn't enjoy it, and you didn't say no. Something you was into, and he wanted you out of it. All he had to do was just look at me, and I was gone. He didn't have to tell me to move. Because he said something, he meant it, and you better move, or he'd move you. And I know it.
Do you believe that if your mother would have lived, that your life would have been a lot different?
I know it would have. I know it would have. Yes, definitely. Because he was, as I said, he was a farmer. And we was on a farm, had a farm going at the time of her death. But he didn't give the farm away near about it. And she died. Come to Pensacola, put in public work. And he didn't have no trade. All he knowed how to do was use a shovel or wheelbarrow or something like that. He had no trade. He didn't have no better education than I ended up with. or as much. All the education he got, he got it out of a little old blueback speller. Words, spelling, learn how to spell this, that, and the other. That's the only education he had. So he had no kind of trade, and so he got a job pushing a wheelbarrow and shoveling sawdust over at Wise and Fricko. Well, back then it was Wise and Patterson lumber mill over across Little Bayou. And that or WPA work or something like that's about all he ever knew to do. And so when he was there and our family was together, well, he made such a little bit of money till we went hungry. I can remember many a time that I come in from school and go down the road to my aunt's house and ask her if she had an old cold biscuit I could eat. And the first pair of shoes I ever wore was after I was a big teenager. I bought them myself. Then I had to learn how to walk with shoes on. But I had went barefooted all my life up until then. I could run through sand spurs, briars. It didn't bother me.
So you got tough feet?
There was calluses on them. But it didn't bother me. I run through sand spurs, or I'd get out of them. I'd just slide my feet like you're sliding your shoe to rub them out the bottom of your shoe. I slide my foot on the dirt, rub them out, gone again. But barefooted, tough feet, that way, I could outrun a cow in the woods and catch her flat-footed, outrun her. I could have caught a hog. I'd catch up with him, but he turned quicker than I could, and I couldn't catch him. I was about ready to grab him. He'd gone that way, and I was still going. I couldn't stop. But, you know, lady, we still got each other.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 18 and just turned 18. And grandma was 13. Soon she become 14 right away. I mean, close to it. And,
Do you remember who married you?
well, it was a judge there in Geneva, Alabama, but I don't remember his name. You might see it on the marriage certificate. I don't know. It might be on it. I can't remember his name. But that's where we went to get married, in Geneva, Alabama.
Is that where y'all were living at the time? I mean, were y'all in Alabama?
And I was living over in Florida.
And you went to Alabama to get married?
Well, that was close to town. Yeah, we were right close to the Florida and Alabama line. If we'd come back this way, we'd have to come slam to Bonneville, which would have been about twice the distance of going across the line to Geneva.
So you could go cross state to get married?
Yeah.
Then?
It made no difference. As long as you got your license and you had to take a doctor's test to make sure you was healthy. And come back to the judges there in the courthouse, and the judge, he marries you.
Did y'all have any problems getting married?
No.
Any problems with her parents or your parents? Or?
No, we didn't have no problems getting married. Only problem I reckon you could say was her stepdaddy. If I went after her, he was gonna shoot me. So I just told your great-grandma, I said, you bring her, or I'm coming after her.
And she brought her?
And she brought her, yeah, she took the old lady and brought her to us. Because she knowed I meant what I said.
So where'd y'all live after you got married?
Well, we started off living in the house with her half-sister and my brother. But that didn't last but a month or two before we got a place of our own. Or well, it was actually, the next place was a big house, and you had room for a family over here and a family on this side. So Doc Marine took one side of it, and we took the other. Yeah. Great grandma gave us enough of bedding. We made out with it, and I think I learned Black Alabama. I give a woman that had an old stove sitting under the barn out there. I think I give $2 for a wood stove. So that's what we started housekeeping with. Dish or two, plate or two, and just went from there. Oh, we left the stove up there when we moved to this county here and ended up on like that old 2-eye heater I had sitting here. Your grandma made biscuits on one of them, cooked on one of them until we could do better when we left and come to this down here. Man that moved us, he didn't have room on the truck to haul it along with our other stuff. So we left it at my sister's. My brother-in-law, I think he got rid of it. Lee and Riley, really. We never did get the stove. We ended up getting us another one down here. And we was married in 37. And I think in 38, after Buddy was born, and he was born in Holmes County, well, we moved to this county. And we've been living in this county since 38. That's the day before yesterday.
The day before yesterday. After you said you lived in that house with Uncle Doc and Aunt Marine. They were on one side, you was on the other?
Yeah.
Where'd y'all live after you got out of that house?
Well, when we got out of that house, we rented a house from Lee Riley, down in the Riley settlement. No, before that, we went up in Alabama, didn't we, gal?
Went up to Idaho.
It was, I don't remember the old man's name, but we went up Alabama, edge of Alabama.
Stayed up there for a while.
And you don't rent. You move in, and farmers already have small houses for people to move into, and you work, plow, pick cotton, shake peanuts, or whatever you got to do. Well, we was in it a few weeks before we come back to Florida, and moved in a house belonging to Lee Riley. When we left it, we moved into one, Doc Myers. And then we went back, I believe, to Lee Riley house. Anyway, we left Lee Riley's house and we moved to this county. Back in summers along in 38 anyway. And I farmed the first year that I was here. I farmed a place of ground for the use of a man's horse to farm mine. I truck farmed that year, traded a wristwatch for a Model T car. And I used that Model T car to deliver peas, tomatoes, and stuff all over Pensacola.
That was a good deal.
Well, Model Ts was cheap back then.
Well,
If I'd have had any sense, if I had had any sense about, I realized how valuable they was going to become, and I bought me up a bunch of them and stored them away. They were thousands this day and time. But the last one I offered to buy was a two-seated touring car, Model T. Nigger had it over on Railroad Street. And I wanted to buy it, but he wanted $40 for it. If he'd have took $25 or $30 for it, I'd have bought it. I wouldn't give him 40. If I'd have had any sense, I could give him 100 and still come out way ahead. But anyway, I used that Model T going to work with WPA till I just about burned it up. And then I sold it to a fellow down here in Pace.
You keep saying WPA?
Huh?
You keep saying WPA?
Well, it was different names. It was something that was started with Roosevelt back in 32 or 33, somewhere along in there, that Roosevelt got in office. And he started that kind of stuff, commodities and all like people get nowadays even. But he started that kind of stuff, and he started working on the road. He told Wall Street, the millionaires up there, says, get off of your money and get work started for the people, or I'll counterfeit your money. And they started up putting in industries and stuff and putting people to work. That was right after the Depression. He was breaking up the Depression caused from World War I. And he started this WPA, and it was CWA and NRA and various figures that way, and each one stood for something. Like Niggers Rule America, NRA, and that's what we called it. It was NRA, or WPA, or CWA, and different names that way. But anyway, it was you get a card from some office down here. There's 3 or 4 running in that office, and they sent out cards, put me out here, and I helped build this road up here from the red light there in Pace, Sam up to Shamuckla, and then I helped on from J cross over to Century and through there. I worked on all them roads back up in there until I left the road work, and we come down here and we built Spencer Field, this flying field. I helped build it. And then I was transferred up Pace Field. And that's where I got to being missed about. I was a laborer out here. But when I went up Spencer, helping build Spencer Field, I went from a laborer to what we call a timberman. Laborers was 21 cents an hour back them days. And timberman, I got a raise up 33 cents an hour. And that was pretty good money back then. And then I went from a timberman up to bulldozer operator, operating a bulldozer, 44 cents an hour. And then my chest was stuck way out, you know, making good money. And when I left that, I had to go find something else to do. So I went in and started helping a guy that lived close to me there do a little carpenter work and roofing. Well, he had that whole paper mill project. He was building a paper mill and he was building a whole housing project through there. And I'd go to the job and he wasn't there, my boss. So the boss man owned the construction, the boss man had the whole works, which his name was Watson. Lived out the other side of Little Bayou over there in town. And but my boss wasn't there. He was off drinking. So I asked them two bosses, they was standing talking with each other about doing the roofing. He said, "Can you do it?" I says, "I hope to do what you see done right there." He said, "If you can do it, you got the job." Well, that's where I become a roofer. And I put on roofing the rest of my life, I reckon. Even at White and Field, but they didn't have enough for me to do. But out there, if I wasn't doing roofing, I learned to weld, I learned to carpenter, I learned sheet metal work, electrician work, I learned it all. And I go to work with a man that out of my trade, I made it my business to learn to do a better job than he done. And that's what I've always tried to tell my boys. Learn it, whether you want to ever do it again or not. You get a chance, learn it. And that goes for you too. Anything you ever get a chance at, you may not want to follow that trade. You may not ever want to do it again. But learn everything you can. Because the more you learn about this job or that job, it'll help you with the other. And that's what, they didn't have a man on White and Field out there that could do the various trades that I could do. I've had the heavy duty welder come to me to get me to do some welding that he didn't know how to do. And I've had, the other one was rated as a sheet metal worker, but he done light work. He could take a acetylene torch and on little light metal on your car out there and sew it up like nobody's business. But neither one of them could weld aluminum. I welded it. They ain't neither one of them it could weld that thin stainless steel like they had in some of the mess halls and come and get me to do it. Because I made it my business to beat them at their own trade. And for as roofing, I never even heard of a man or any two of them that could compete with me by myself, except for one man. One man that I work with most of my roofing over there, and those old E.P. Shavers. And to give you an example, there was a hot stuff crew McCormick had doing the job right there next to us. Me and Pete had two niggers, and they was big uns, and one white man toting shingles to us, half square bundles. And we covered Child's Restaurant, or next door to it one, I don't remember now. Anyway, we was up there and off in 2 hours' time, and two niggers and that one white man couldn't get shingles to us fast enough, where I toted some of the shingles across the roof myself. Pete, I think he got a bundle or two. And when we were putting our tools in the box, McCormick's boss man on his built up come walking across, and he says, "You know what you boys has done?" "No, what have we done?" He said, "I've been standing here watching you and clocking, timing you." Said, "Y'all have nailed 20 squares of shingles in 2 hours." Now you find me somebody else that can say that. I have nailed them back when I was young and could use myself, my legs, my feet, and I can't hardly squat down now, period. But I have squatted on that roof from sun up till sundown.
Did you enjoy roofing?
Huh?
Did you enjoy roofing?
Well, only one thing is you take a movie star, a boxer, a wrestler, they all got audience, haven't they? Watching them. Well, I've been roofing and look out there and I'd have 15, 20 people stopping the road watching me. Because they couldn't believe that a man could move that fast.
Made you feel good.
And well, that's what I'm talking about. A boxer, whatever, he lacks that audience. Well, that's the only part that made me feel good. It was hard. It was work. There's no doubt about it. It was work. And I never seen but that E.P. Shavers. He was the fastest. In fact, I let him think he could beat me. Roofing. I don't know if you ever seen two gunmen in a picture, and they'd play like they was going to shoot each other to the end of the picture, and it come down for a real thing. And the one that always got beat tell the other one, said, "Don't do it." Says, "I've always let you beat me." Well, now that's the way I was by Pete. I always let him think, even though others around me swearing and bedurned that Pete wasn't the fastest. I always said, "Pete's the fastest." I was next to him. Pete's the fastest. Because I loved him like a brother. And everybody I ever talked to like that, they said, "No." I said, "You the fastest." Because they had stood and watched. Well, I let Pete think he was the fastest until me, one day I had a bungalow house, if you know what a bungalow is. Got a lot of ridge in it. It's short courses and they get longer, roundabout. But the day I was supposed to do it, that evening coming in, Pete got to drinking. And he had a .380 Magnum pistol. He stuck it out at my window. He was in my car. And I started to shoot a nigger on the side of the street. I grabbed his arm and snatched it back in the car. Went on, he did shoot a garbage can then. And I got after him about that. Well, I didn't want to get in jail. I didn't want to get in trouble. And we're coming through Golden over on Old Palafox coming up. That's where he shot the garbage can. And right there in Golden, though, and I was trying to out-talk him about doing that, put the gun away. Well, I'll shoot your window. Boom! And he shot my windshield out. Well, that made me mad. I make it think it made anybody angry. That thing throwed a slug near about big around as your thumb. And I looked first to have it out right then. We was in fights, but not with each other. And he said, like he told me one time, said, "Bam," I wonder what it would be like if me and you tangled butts. Well, we was fast. We depended on our speed to whip anybody. A man hit at me. I've had over a 200-pound man hit at me, and if he'd have hit me, he'd knock my head half off, but he never did hit me. Your grandma said he hit me in the back one time when I went under his leg. But I told Pete, I said, "Now, Pete," I said, "you kill your nigger. You shoot them garbage cans." But I said, "You shot my window." I said, "When you shot that my windshield out," I said, "You messing with me." Well, I looked for him to say, "Pull it over," which I would have done. Pull it over and me and him have it out. But he didn't. He sat there, dropped his head down for a few seconds. "I'm sorry, Bab. I'll pay you for your windshield." Well, he died over me. before he beat me out of it. But anyway, coming to what I was fixing to say, I was still mad the next day. And that's the only time that I ever showed that man I could walk all over him with nailing shingles. I walked all over him, just nailed him to the roof. Because I was mad with him. I didn't care if I made him mad, because he already made me mad. Shoot. I had Robert Riley, and Buddy, he was a pretty good sized boy, bigger than Mark. And Buddy and Robert Riley was two that were getting the shingles to us. And I was still mad at him. Only time I ever tried to run over Pete, I just nailed his butt to the roof. Well, there's one man said one time, wanted to know where the nails was coming from. He says, I see you nail, 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 nail. Says, I never see you get a nail. I said, where'd it coming from? Well, that's wherein your hand is quicker than the eye. My nails, I told it on my left hip, out of my way. And I feed that shingle in with my left hand, until I run out of nails, and then I reach for nails and a shingle at the same time. Shingle with my right hand that time, and they'd come in position. Well, I done it so much, to my accuracy is just like until you see these people making music on different instruments. They don't have to look at the instrument, because their hands are trained to do what they want to do. Just like a woman that's a good typist, man. You don't look at them numbers and hunt them, because your hands know where it's at. Well, that's the way my hands was about placing this shingle. I could reach and get a handful of nails, get a shingle with my right hand and have it placed, and my nails coming out another handful at the same time. And I was gone again, gone again. When I run out of nails, there's the same thing, over and over. And that man couldn't see me changing hands. Hands were just quicker than the eye.
You mentioned Whiting Field. Did you work for the military?
Done what?
You mentioned Whiting Field. Did you work for the military?
When I was at Whiting, I was rated as a roofer all the time I was out there. But these days I might be working sheet metal work. At days I might be laying floor tile. And there's days I might be in the welding shop welding up something. And they even had the boss to come and get me and put me on the lathe. Days that Uncle Charlie was off, our machinist. And I took a lathe and built bearings and different stuff for buffing machines for the labor bunch going all over buffing up barracks and hangars and stuff like that. Anything they wanted done, they learned I was capable of doing it. So I wasn't roofing. Very little of that I done. I did. Actually, I imagine you put it all together. I didn't do 10-15% of my time out there that I wasn't roofing. But I was drawing roofing pay. But I was doing something else. And that's the way I wanted all my kids to do it. And there's some of them that they don't back away. I tried to learn them. Don't back away from anything. That's how come your grandma would take a car and go out cross country up here and something happened to it. She'd get out and fix it, because I turned her to start with. So you don't back away from nothing. Do it. I always figure if other men can do it, I can do it.
Do you know about how many grandchildren you have?
No, not exactly. Junior and Kelly. I don't reckon I could take the time to count them up.
too many to count, really, right?
Hmm?
Too many to count.
Well, you count them. Alvin's got 2. And Jesse, Alvin's got 2 of my grandchildren and 1 great-grandchildren. And Jesse, him and Sherry's got 1. But she had 3 beforehand, if you want to count them step-grandchildren. Well, you know how you moan, Scott.
3.
She got 2.5 anyway.
Oh,
And let's see, Buddy, he's got 3. And well, Evelyn's got 4. James, well, I won't even try to say about him.
There's what?
that was my mother.
6. James got 6, right? 5 girls and a boy.
What was your
There's Bob and
He ain't got no
Joe.
boy.
Lee.
Ain't no boy in that family.
Lee.
Well, if you want to call it a step, adopted, that is.
Well,
That's like-
it's still his son.
Yeah, I'd appreciate getting him.
Well-
keeping in contact. I wanted to get a.
He's done so sorry that I just don't count him no.
Come up with some sort of a book for everybody.
Well,
but,
he's-
if I don't get some help
Lee, he
on
has
it,
took
don't
from just
take
about
it.
all of them. Buddy, Don, James, his mama,
Otherwise, just get all the information I
And,
can get. See, I went right on back. and
he's
I've got-
strictly for Lee.
got it up far back
You
as,
can't trust him, so I just don't even count
1859.
him.
Yeah, well, my great granddaddy was in the war. I got partially of some of his war records.
Don't count him.
And where he
Do you
died,
feel
where
that
he's
you've
buried.
accomplished most of what you wanted to during your life?
Accomplished what?
Most of what you wanted to? That you're pretty happy with your life? Or is there anything you'd go back and change?
Well, I
I've been in
accomplished,
off and on the past 20 years.
I reckon most anything I set out to do. Now, I could have accomplished more if you're talking
I
about
found out where it's at. It's in
going to an extreme and stacking money away like my next door neighbor's doing. I signed for him to get his first truck, and he drove it for a long time until he got money enough. He retired and old enough. He retired off of it and put him a driver on there, and then he started buying other trucks till he's got 10 trucks on the road. What ain't on the road sitting out here at the house. Well, now he's a little bit, I figure, like I've heard about it. You make $1 million, and then you make $1 million, you want to make $2 million. Make $2 million, you want to make 4. Make 4, you want to make 10. Well, now, I don't feel that way, and never have. James, way back on, tried to get me to start putting up trailer parks all over that field back there.
That's right. From what I can understand, my great granddaddy had.
All I want out of life is just good health
That's what I found out.
and some good groceries, if I can get them. Something to eat. And I want to stack back a nest egg. I got a few thousand in the bank. But I ain't gonna try to keep on keeping on and build it up. Because I turn it loose and spend some of it all along because I feel like I'm spending my kids' inheritance.
Well, it's yours.
Yeah. And I give away hundreds
Well,
of
would you
dollars,
give me your name, your full name and address, and
helping others.
I'll be trying to
But I enjoy that.
get up
I
what I
give
got.
groceries
Copy machines out if the white right now.
Away out of my deep freeze, canned goods,
Bulb went out on it, so.
I give away peas, butter beans, roasting ears out of my field, by the bushels, by the 5-gallon cans. And I don't regret a bit of it. It makes me feel good to do. Like the good Lord says, keep doing, so that you will have to give to those that need. Well, that's what I try to do.
Yes, yes.
I walked out to 2 or 3 churches because we couldn't agree on a religion. Like your daddy, Oliver, they believe Church of Christ is the only one going to heaven. I don't. I can't believe it that way. And like Paul said, that they all walked out down there. They don't believe in miracles. I do. I've seen them happen. I know they happen. I believe in them. I know they happen. But Paul, when I was mentioning about it that day, if you was in there, I told about a miracle happening with one of my first cousins, with my uncle and my aunt. A little boy was a little fella like might have been a little bit older than Ben. But anyway, my uncle was out in the field. He was a farmer. He was out in the field plowing with a mule. And Aunt Callie was cleaning up the kitchen when the little boy woke up, come in, and Aunt Callie feeding him, his mama. And the little boy put in to tell her about the good Lord coming by his bedside that night and talked to him. And no reason for lying. I've had older folks that was young people like yourself or a little older than yourself that knowed this was happening. But anyway, the little boy talked and described what the good Lord looked like. Come by his bedside and talked to him. And says, the good Lord wanted to take me with him. But I asked him not to do it, that I wanted to tell you and Daddy bye-bye.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, I'll come back after you.
Joseph Henry, yeah.
Well, Aunt Callie, she thought it was just a kid's dream.
That's right. He was
So
only about
she'd
30
go
years
along
old.
with him, you know, to humor him. He got through with his breakfast, he jumps down and out in the field out there, and he starts following Uncle William around,
Right.
telling him about it. Well, Uncle William, he thought it was just a dream, kid's dream. So he just went along with the boy. Come dinner time, though, Uncle William come in, and they eat dinner. Well, he, before catching his mule out and going back to plow, he lay down across the bed, like resting a few minutes. Well, it's coming up a cloud, and a woman down the road, her 2 little boys, was coming up to visit Aunt Callie, and it started sprinkling. They started running. They come on in the house, and the rain come on. Well, Uncle William's little boy and that woman's 2 little boys, they got down side the window and watching it rain on the window and running down. But the wind changed and it started blowing in the front door. And Uncle William raised up on the bed and told him, son, how closing the door. And the little boy, he jumps up to go close the door, but when he was doing it, he said, Daddy, I closed the door, but so the good Lord get me anyway. He closed the door, turned around and walked back to the window. And lightning struck, knocked all 3 of the boys back out in the middle of the floor. And it killed him, but it didn't hurt the other 2 boys.
I found these books in the library, and I borrowed them, and I brought them home, and I copied them.
I guess they believed that, didn't
So
they?
I would have copies.
Well, I could have seen after I got up big enough, he would have been older than me, some bit older than me if he had lived. But after I got up big enough, I could see his little red wagon up in the hayloft out there outside. Little red wagon that Uncle William had bought him. And he wouldn't let none of his kids or nobody else bother with that wagon. He kept it as a souvenir of that reminder of that boy. And another one I mentioned was these parrots. You've probably heard of parrots around these. In fact, there's one of them that run for county commissioner. One of them's boy. was running, but the older ones come from Holmes County. Well, their daddy up there and his second wife,
Henry's
not the
wife's
wife,
name was,
not these boys'
otherwise
mother
she
because
married
she is
one
dead,
of
but
the
he had the old man Perry had remarried,
She
and
was
Miss
18
Dallas,
years,
the
yes.
one he had remarried, woman
But
he'd
that's-
remarried,
her stepdaddy,
she
I
was a
think,
big Christian.
I know it
and,
had to be her stepdaddy because,
She had a sister that got down bedridden, and she was a big Christian too. Both of the women were big Christian women.
My mother always said she was marked up.
So her sister, she took her sister and brought her to her
I
place
reckon it might have been because they were so
to look after her. And she was bedridden,
well,
just laying there.
Get around sending me
There
what
one
you
day,
got, I can compare it with
her
what I
sister
got.
told
I've
her,
got a whole lot.
says,
A lot
Sister
of
Dallas,
don't jive
says,
together
your
because
faith
there's a
in
lot of
God
things
is the
that
only
it's
thing
hard.
keeping me alive. Says, if you will give me up, willing for the Lord to take me, says, I'll go on. And she talked, see, Sister Dallas are praying for her sister, keep her sister alive. Well, anyway, her sister kept on till she talked to Miss Dallas and into agreeing,
Pick up anything
to
you
let her
pick
go
up in
on.
the library on those,
and so they said
archived records.
her sister didn't live 5 minutes after Sister Dallas agreed
That's where I
to
get
let her
my
go,
mind, and
let
I
the Lord
copy
take her.
everything that's got a regular name
Well, she was
stuff
dead
on it,
5 minutes.
And then I fit 'em in.
Now, I live with them and I work with them. In fact, Miss Dallas had a pitcher of buttermilk
No, in 19,
on the
early
table,
1900s,
in
they
the safe.
used
She
to
poured me a big old glass of it, fresh buttermilk.
And there's a
There
lot
at the
of
dinner
them
table
that
one day, I come in
my
flying,
first
I come in,
that has dropped that
and
line.
went to drinking that buttermilk, and all at once, one of them big old lumps of buttermilk had thorns on it. So I just dropped everything and headed for the porch. And Sister Dallas, she was right in behind me. What's the matter? What's the matter? Well, I didn't have time to answer her.
Well, they was the James raiders
I
that
headed
gave
for the
the
porch,
sheriff
and
here
whoop, and there it went. A big old
there
cockroach about like that.
early 1900s.
Splattered out there with that buttermilk.
It was the James raiders.
Oh my Lord, my Lord. Then she went and got that whole pitcher of buttermilk.
But now,
throwed it out.
On my granddaddy's, great-granddaddy's
Well,
Army record, he spelled
Oliver.
it R-A-L.
I'm not Oliver.
All right.
Paul.
Whenever Eleanor, his wife,
He
signed-
steps up and he
signed
says,
a,
he couldn't believe in no such a thing. Well, that was a miracle that she was praying her faith. Well, you know the Bible says, with enough faith, you can move a mountain.
But both of them that signed the paper, see, I
Well,
got
Paul
a
says,
certificate
if we
of
could
everything
do
from
that
the
with
Army.
faith,
When I
we
got
could keep
kids,
our
I
parents
got-
alive from now on. But now, who would want to do a thing like that? Like you've seen on TV here the last few days. There's a woman been kept
Well,
alive, I think, 13 years.
And I thanks very much, and,
A long time anyway.
anytime, 'cause I'm here.
And she's just a living vegetable.
Evelyn Lucille Bow.
And they went to court 2 or 3 times to try to get, pull the plug and let her die. Because she just laying there, living vegetable. Don't know anybody. Can't talk, can't do nothing. Well, now who wants to keep alive like that?
That would put us cousins.
Well, they went to court the last time and they finally won, pull the plug, and she's dead. But they had to go to court, get the court order to finally do it, the whole family members.
Didn't she live for a few days afterwards? After they unplugged it? Didn't she live for a few
I don't
days?
know,
Oh,
I
well,
didn't,
it's all right.
probably some of it I didn't catch on TV, but I remember seeing it.
Good.
Well, as I said, I walked out of 2 or 3 churches because I don't believe in some things I see.
One of Mama's brothers.
But I do believe in what the Bible says there. I believe in my Bible. I've read the New Testament more than once from start to finish. And I think if we can live up according to the New Testament, I think we'll be doing a good thing. I think we'll. I I think the Lord will accept us if we can live up to what's in that New Testament. Because He does say, and He don't say about the church, this church, that church, t'other church. Me, now I believe it's good in all churches. You take Paul, one of his disciples. He was a murderer before he became a child of God. But he could become one of Christ's disciples because at the time he thought he was doing right. And when he learned that he wasn't doing right and become a child of God, he got forgiveness of all of that. And you can read it in your New Testament that each will be judged according to our own works. Now, I've committed sin all my life until about when I quit and decided to try to live a Christian life. And so I tried to pray to God for help me to forgive me for the sins I committed. I hate that I didn't go to that extent a long time ago. Because like I used to think it's just a heaven and a hell. Never give it any thought about there are more than one heaven. Till out there at Whiting Field one day, I was talking to preacher Hawkins. And anyway, he understood that that's the way I think. He said, wait a minute now, there's more than one heaven. Says, as far as I know, there's one hell, but says there's more than one heaven. He says, you take for instance, says you've been living a Christian life, serving God the best you know how, all your life, and go to heaven. But say, here I've sinned all my life. But before I go, I kneel and get forgiveness of my sins. Says it still wouldn't be right for me to go to the same heaven as you, because you serve God a lot more than I have. Well, some people say there ain't no difference in a little sin and a big sin. If there ain't no difference in a little sin and a big sin, why would Christ say that the men that crucified him did not sin as much so as the man that betrayed him? See, that shows you there is a difference. In another place there where I just spoke of, he said we would each be judged according to our own works. Well, there you go. That's a little sin or a big sin. Maybe otherwise. I've sinned more than you have. I lived a lot longer than you have, and so I know I've sinned a lot more. So there's a difference. But you go ahead and ask a question. Shoot back.
Well, we're almost finished. This is a tape that one day your grandchildren and generations to come is going to watch. Is there anything specific that you'd like to tell them?
Well, mainly as I love them all. Even Jesse has been told something. In fact, he was told I messed with his girl and his step-girls, and I never said nothing, neither one of them, out of the way. So, he don't speak to me. But I still love him because he is my son. And I love them all. I don't go along with the life James has lived. Ain't nothing I can do about it, but he's still my son. He's still my flesh and blood. I've been accused of a lot of things I wasn't guilty of. Just like most any outlaw out there. Used to in the olden days might commit a lot of crimes, but there's a lot of crimes committed that he got the blame for. But I love them all, and I hope they'll all live a life that I can see them up yonder if I can possibly make it. I'm trying. I'm trying. I prayed and I still pray for forgiveness of things I've done. I had my reasons for doing the things, some of it that I done. At the time I was doing it, I thought I was right. Maybe, but ain't nobody perfect. Nobody perfect.
That's it, unless you've got something else to say.
Well, I just hope to see you up there. Hope you come up to see me sometime.
I hope so too.
I think each and every one would be better off if we try to live a Christian life while you're young, right on through life. As Preacher Hawkins says about one living a Christian life all through life. That's why I don't know how many heavens is, but I know the Bible speaks as many as 3 heavens. Well, I hope, baby, that you can make it to that top one. If I'm in the bottom one, I ask the good Lord, can I go up to see you one time? But I don't know.